Number 10. Unpopular. Now that Charles is king, his new role is going to be daunting, and he has a real uphill battle to restore his tarnished reputation. Queen Elizabeth was overwhelmingly popular and well respected, but her son, on the other hand, has a major image problem: strained family relationships, endless scandals, and lingering allegations of racism against him. Charles confronts those challenges at the age of 73, the oldest monarch ever to take the throne in a lineage that dates back 1,000 years. Alongside his wife Camilla, who was equally controversial and universally disliked. In short, the British public sees the new king as weak, vain, and ill-equipped for the role of sovereign. Although Charles has taken a stand on important environmental issues such as sustainability and climate change, he has fallen pitifully short on animal welfare issues. He has also been ridiculed for admitting that he talks to plants and obsesses over hating modern architecture. But more than anything, he got a whole lot of backlash for speculating about the complexion of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's future children. He allegedly asked Camilla, "I wonder what the children would look like," and lowering his voice asking, "I mean, what do you suppose the children's complexions might be?" So the allegations of racism were pretty hard to ignore.
And with that, at number 9 we have Diana. Just the whole situation. And in a way, this also kind of extends to the more recent Meghan Markle controversy. You see, Diana was a very open individual. The people loved her, and she had no issue being honest about her hardships. Among the royals, Diana was the most human, and she would make this fact known by being open and honest about her human struggles, especially being a part of the incredibly structured, judgmental, and old-fashioned royal family. In November 1995, the princess gave a television interview during which she spoke of her unhappiness in her personal life and the pressures of her public role. Specifically, Diana suffered from depression and bulimia, which she talked about in length, and it honestly accrued her a lot more love from the people than she already had. And in turn, it also turned the public against the royal family even more, especially as Charles and friends of his would use her words against her, claiming that anything she accused Charles of was caused by her psychological issues. It's kind of truly disgusting, and adds to the reason some people believe the monarchy should be abolished. At number 8, we have people's doubts about whether or not Charles is actually Harry's biological father. With all the scandal that was surrounding Charles and his former wife Diana, it was starting to look like there couldn't possibly be any more reports about them that could surface. That was until a few people scratched beyond the surface in one of Diana's tell-alls. In 1995, in an interview on BBC's Panorama with a journalist named Martin Bashir, Diana admitted to an affair she carried out for 5 years with a military man named James Hewitt. There was intense speculation once Diana passed that James was potentially the biological father of her son Harry and not Charles as originally believed. And despite their ever so prominently similar looks, James denied being Harry's real dad. James detailed that it wouldn't have been possible because Harry was conceived prior to the start of his and Diana's relationship. Still, people be speculating. At number 7, we have the Queen and her secret cousins. Aired on Channel 4 for the British network in 2011 was a documentary called The Queen's Hidden Cousins, where it was revealed that there was a scandal that managed to conceal itself from the eye of the public for decades. Way back in the 1940s, the stigma around mental disabilities was very prominent, and it wasn't seen or understood as well as it is now. Obviously, with Diana, this stigma reared its ugly head, but the Queen's first cousins, Catherine and Nerissa, fell victim to their physical and mental issues as well. The nieces of the Queen Mother were placed into a mental institution in 1941 and remained there for the rest of their lives. Because of this, Nerissa and Catherine were said to have been cut off from the lives of the royal family forever. A nurse in the documentary who oversaw the cousins made it very clear that not once did the royals ever go to see Catherine or Nerissa. This claim was obviously disputed by the royal family, but I obviously don't doubt it. At number 6, we have Princess Beatrice, who dated a criminal. While she was 7th in line for the throne and held the title of being the Queen's granddaughter, Beatrice was also a socialite and philanthropist. However, she also made some fairly sketchy dating decisions in her past. For example, back in 2006, when the princess was a mere 17 years old, Beatrice started seeing American playboy Paolo Lauso. However, ahead of his relationship with Beatrice, Paolo was indicted for taking the life of a 19-year-old man named Jonathan Duchatellier. Jonathan reportedly passed away as a result of the injuries he sustained from Paolo in 2002. The incident was said to have taken place after Jonathan had confronted Paolo about his disrespect towards females at a party. However, the charge of manslaughter was eventually dropped and then reduced. This, however, did not stop Paolo from breaking the terms of his probation to woo Beatrice with a trip to the French Alps. Unsurprisingly, these two did not last. At number 5, we have the incident of the Duchess of York being caught on camera getting her toes sucked. I can't believe I just said that out loud. Sarah Ferguson was married to a certain prince whose very name isn't allowed on YouTube. That is a whole other story I'm not even allowed to talk about, but the pair ended up separating in 1992. When their marriage began to run its course, Sarah was a lot less discreet about her courting of other men, which, of course, again resulted in the royal family's snubbing. The situation escalated even further when Sarah was pictured at a beach with financier John Bryant. During their sandy getaway, Sarah was topless and reporters managed to capture some pics of Brian sucking Sarah's toes. Gross. I don't like that. Naturally, the Queen was not having any of that and ended up banning Sarah from Balmoral Castle. At number 4, we have Princess Anne and her dog, who seemingly enjoyed attacking people. As the only daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth and the sibling of Charles, surprisingly, this is one princess who I didn't think could land in any scandals. From her charity work to her seemingly kind heart, it's almost shocking to know that she's made our countdown. And yet, back when Anne and her husband were placing their dogs into a car after a walk around Windsor Great Park in 2002, one of the dogs, an English Bull Terrier, managed to escape and savagely attack two boys who were enjoying their bike ride in the park. The couple were taken to court and served an $880 fine that they were ordered to pay. This marked the very first time a senior royal had ever been charged with a criminal offense. In a turn of events that was greatly upsetting to the victims' families, the dog was allowed to live, and reportedly the next year or so ended up mauling one of the Queen's most beloved corgis, which the royal family probably took more seriously. That's not a fact, but they seemed pretty self-interested, so it wouldn't be surprising. At number 3, we have Princess Margaret's string of affairs. The Queen's sister, the late Princess Margaret, managed to grasp the interest of the public due to her interesting lifestyle choices. Margaret never once feared living her life however she pleased, as most shouldn't, and was widely known to be a heavy drinker and smoker since she was 15. Despite her marriage to Anthony Armstrong Jones, a photographer, in 1960, Margaret didn't quite slow down her player lifestyle. She started an affair with a gardener in 1973 who was reportedly 17 years younger than her, and she wasn't able to escape the press in 1976 when a picture of her and her reported lover, Roddy Llewellyn, made the front page and headlined the now discontinued news outlet News of the World. This was just the start of Margaret's string of affairs that rocked the boat in her marriage, and by the time 1978 rolled around, the former couple's divorce was finalized, but I'm sure she was perfectly fine. In at number 2, we have first cousins Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. The running joke surrounding the royal family all mixing their DNA and bearing children together has been a constant thing for as long as the royals have been. However, some people don't actually know that this banter is factually correct for some of the couples of the royal family. Cousins and more distant relatives often get betrothed to each other, something about royal bloodlines, which is thankfully a very archaic way of thinking. Even the late Queen Elizabeth and her husband were related. Philip and Elizabeth shared a great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. Philip was a direct descendant of Princess Alice, the third child of Queen Victoria, while Queen Elizabeth is a direct descendant of Queen Victoria's oldest son, who became King Edward VII. Speaking of Victoria, her and her husband Albert were actually first cousins. They got married in 1840 and shared 9 children in their time together. The thing is, royals always married others of similar status in the world, and since historically, royals would make alliances through marriage, bloodlines are interconnected all over Europe. Not really a secret, but still, ick. At number 1, we have Princess Anne's son-in-law who spent a night in a dwarf tossing club. Yes, this one is strange, and yes, it did very much happen. Despite Mike Tyndall not being a royal by blood, his everlasting marriage to Princess Anne's daughter, Zara Phillips, decrees that he is on the ins with the royals. However, his connection to the family could not save the English rugby player from the backlash that occurred after it was reported he spent one of his nights in 2011 at a, quote, dwarf tossing club pub in New Zealand. According to articles from the time, Mike and his team went to celebrate their win against Argentina at the club. And despite Mike insisting he nor his teammates actually threw a dwarf, just him being present in such a location was enough to spark massive outrage in the media. And understandably so, that was kind of messed up. At number 10, we have King Charles and his raunchy phone calls with Camilla. Now this one is pretty gross, honestly. We are full aware of King Charles's marriage to his previous wife Diana and how it was not a good time at all. There was infidelity on both sides here, but the one that really peed people off was Charles's affair with Camilla Parker Bowles. During the time that Camilla and Charles were still with their husband and wife respectively, the two did have some rather interesting secret phone calls. 1992 was the year that Charles and Diana officially separated, but it was also the year when one of these phone conversations were leaked to the public, and Charles had quite a few interesting things to say during that conversation. Things that I don't think I'm even really allowed to say here. Let's just say it had to do with feminine hygiene and call it a day. If you are interested, feel free to research because I'm moving on.
At number 9, we have Kim Kardashian. One thing that many noted during Kim's time being married to rapper Kanye West is that she became a lot more refined, making strides of improvement in how she communicated at that point. Rather than throw direct shade at the royals to end up having to deal with immediate backlash, the reality star took a different approach on how she thought that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were not being perfect. However, she quickly rained in praises for them in multiple ways afterwards. Her underhanded comments were sugarcoated by the nice things she had to say following. Still, Kim has a history of backhanded compliments, which has been proven many times through her media presence, and things she says in passing that she believes means no harm. Like when she spoke about one-time feuding partner Taylor Swift's music in an interview. She began with, "They're all super cute and catchy," only to later retract that by admitting that she had to, quote, "look in my phone to get a name." Seems like they're not that catchy then, Kimmy. At number 8, we have Katy Perry. Now, Katy has been known to have some questionable fashion looks in her days, and she has seen her fair share of media slamming due to the publicly declared poor styling choices she's made for her own attires. However, she refused to hold back when she criticized Meghan's Givenchy wedding gown, which was designed by Claire Keller and featured a simplistic cut with 3/4 length sleeves and an off-the-shoulder neckline. The silk number, of course, is drastically different from Kate Middleton's lace dress from 2011, which had the internet in shambles. Some agreed Meghan's dress was too basic and didn't do the Duchess justice, while others believed it perfectly suited Meghan's classic style. But Katy, she was on the end of the hate train that was not in favor of the gown. Katy was asked about her opinion on the dress during the first night of the American Idol finals, admitting, "I would have done one more fitting. I'm never not going to tell the truth. One more fitting, but I love you." Katy also didn't forget to add that she thought Kate won over Meghan's look with her modern Alexander McQueen number. And despite her super shady negativity, Katy proceeded to positively support Meghan afterwards because of her womanhood strength and humanitarian work. At number 7, we have Wendy Williams. Now, Wendy is surely not impressed by anything that Meghan has achieved in her days as Duchess, nor how Wendy believes Meghan has benefited from marrying a member of the royal family. Wendy has expressed, without directly saying it, that she is not a fan of Meghan and had taken to bashing Meghan on her former show ever since it was announced that Meghan and Harry were seeing one another. Wendy has made previous comments about how she does not believe the marriage between the pair would last, since Meghan seems to constantly be surrounded by, quote, way too much drama. According to Wendy, back in 2017, when she boldly spoke of the Duchess, she said that the royal marriage was a random princess who is just looking for a game to play, as she seems to be a bit of a wild card. Yikes. Even the massive security of the Grand Castle couldn't protect Meghan from Wendy's harsh words, it seems. At number 6, we have Piers Morgan. Now, according to Piers, he was ghosted by Meghan and took immense pride in letting the world know what the most recent addition to the royal family had rumoredly done to him. Apparently, while they shared a set together, the Duchess issued a tweet to him stating that she was a big fan and couldn't contain her excitement about getting to work with Piers. Their relationship seemed to be on the up and ups for a good friendship at that point, as they continued to text and email and even met at a local pub. However, after this, apparently Piers reported that Meghan straight up ghosted him, and ever since then, Piers has made it his mission to shade her. As early as September of this year, Piers has once again lashed out at the married royals in his latest news column following the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The TV presenter has never been shy to bash them before, Meghan specifically, and even walked off Good Morning Britain after the dust of Meghan's 2021 Oprah interview settled. His article for the New York Post came with the winning title, "Harry, if you really want to honor your dad, nix your salacious, tell-all, and rein in your royals trashing wife." In the write-up, Piers stated that Harry had spent the past consecutive years, quote, dishonoring his father, as well as that someone who was quite close with Charles informed Piers that the new King of England was deeply hurt and utterly bemused by the actions of his son, supposedly. Piers added if Harry goes ahead with his horribly ill-advised book, he will betray his pledge to his grandmother and show that his commitment to honor his father is just more hot air from someone who, like his wife, loves to preach one thing but practice another. At number 5 we have Amy Schumer. Actress and comedian Amy Schumer dished her own plate of steaming hot shade when she slyly spoke on a radio show about her disdain for Meghan. Apparently, while making an appearance on Sydney Fitzy's and Wippa's radio show, they spoke about the wedding, where Amy made it clear how she felt Meghan's wedding dress didn't actually belong to her, and made jokes about how she had to greet foreign delegates on her big day, which were supposedly people she had neither seen nor met before then. Amy also curated a few underhand compliments about how bad of an experience it must have been for Meghan. However, regardless of the now lack of shock for her invite, I'm sure Amy would have positively shown up had she been on the invitee list to attend the then highly anticipated royal affair. At number 4 we have Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell was seemingly blindsided about not making the guest list for Prince Harry's wedding, and in return, the British star decided to cast some very public and not so subtle shade about the royals in return. Obviously, Simon felt as if he was owed an invitation, especially because Kate Middleton's trusty mailman had made the guest list, and he later used his public forum to reveal that his invite was potentially lost in the mail. Yet, according to Simon, it was also his own fault why he was snubbed from the royal wedding in the first place, and he blames his snarky comments as the reason why. It seems he rattled the royals with his insults about the late Queen Elizabeth that may have landed him in hot water at the time. He once told Jay Leno, "No, I haven't been invited to the royal wedding. I may have said something to the Queen about her hat when I met her. I guess karma is a you-know-what." At number 3 we have Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry's comedic method of expressing his thoughts about literally anything is quite a skill. Still, his reference to a circus act for Meghan and Harry's wedding had the public unsure of how to react. At the time, Jerry spoke with E! News about the occasion, and alongside his jabs, he also sneakily commented on William and Kate Middleton at the time. This was during promotions for his England stand-up concert in June, where he was featured on Daybreak for the country's ITV station. While the interviewer, Adrian, mentioned the then upcoming nuptials of William and Kate, Jerry shocked possibly the entirety of America by saying, "Well, it's a circus act, it's an absurd act. You know, it's a classic English thing of let's play dress up, let's pretend these are special people. We'll all pretend. That's what theater is." He also dished out some backhandedly sweet words about British theater before commenting more on the royals with, "And that's what the royal family is. It's a huge game of pretend. These aren't special people, it's fake outfits, phony hats, and gowns." And I mean, it's safe to assume Jerry didn't make the invite list for either weddings nor any preceding royal events in his current time for that matter. At number 2 we have Lily Allen. Don't be fooled by Lily's sweet voice because sometimes, like in this instance, she says some less than sugary stuff. When she discussed the most recent royal wedding in her highlighted E! News segment, Lily ranted about how she failed to secure a spot in the invitee list while Joss Stone received an invitation. She later attempted to cover up her bitterness by pretending that she was not affected, making sure to vocalize that she was far too busy to attend regardless. Still, it's clear by her bringing it up that she was a little bit touchy about the topic and didn't hesitate with her shade for the royals when she finished with, "Well, you can quote me as outraged. Why does Joss Stone get an invite and not moi?" At number 1 we have Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy was the former leader of the Labour Party as one of their left-wing politicians. In his time on top, Jeremy directly challenged loads of people in power and individuals with authority throughout the time span of his career. In light of this, Jeremy faced media criticism in 2015 for his refusal to belt "God Save the Queen" during a memorial event. Shortly following this, an older interview of his managed to resurface, and in it he stated that his quote preference to have the royal family completely dissolved. At number 10 we have Beyonce. If you take cheat sheet's word for it, Beyonce obtains a massive chip on her shoulder in regards to how her fame lines up with that of the powerful English monarchy. Her once humble upbringing seemed to shatter when she was invited to meet the royals and showed up late with Jay-Z. According to the news source, the pair arrived following the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which is considered rude among other things. In short, the royal family's time was disrespected, and in turn they were reportedly upstaged by Queen Bee's own swarm of media attention. And this wouldn't even be the first first time Beyonce has been caught up in an uptight diva royal-esque behavior either. Apparently, the Houston native's reported on-shoot demands were once exposed by an apparent close source, and let me tell you, it wasn't looking too good for Bey back then. Things like her supposedly requesting that her dressing room transition into a fully baby-proof space and that it be furnished all white, and her demands of a large additional room with a massive vanity and stage lights so her appearance team could work under the best circumstances to ensure she looked her greatest. Beyonce also allegedly asked that all her food be served on a crisp white tablecloth and that the temperature needed to remain at 72 degrees Fahrenheit to keep warm. Alongside this, Bey also supposedly specified Jo Malone candles or comparable grapefruit candles to be on hand and 2 bars of Irish Spring soap. I mean, if any of this is true, Beyonce low-key makes the royal family's demands seem like light work.
Number 9. Short reign. With Queen Elizabeth II's death on Thursday, King Charles III has now become the oldest person in British history to be king at age 73. But the fact is that Charles's reign is inevitably going to be far shorter than Queen Elizabeth's. So the fact that King Charles will have a much shorter reign concerns some people. Why? Change on a grand scale can be scary, and people inherently don't like the idea of instability, which is something that they never had to worry about with Queen Elizabeth. Throughout the nation, she was a symbol of stability and order, even managing to outlast 12 US presidents. So after all, at Charles's age, some might question that he will be unable to tackle royal tours with the same vigor as his mother, and with the 1937 Regency Act, there are only 4 family members that can act on the king's behalf when he is sick, incapacitated, or out of the country. But that's a major problem because currently 2 of those 4 people are out of action. Prince Andrew is now disgraced from his scandal surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, and Prince Harry is ineligible because he lives abroad. So it's a bit of a messy situation. Number 8. They hate Camilla. A survey from BGM Research revealed that only 20% of people think Camilla should take the title of queen. Given that Prince Charles is now married to the other woman, that may also make people feel less inclined to get behind him as the reigning monarch. Back in the 90s, one of the biggest scandals to rock the British royal family was when Charles was caught having an affair with Camilla. The transcript of their phone sex was published on the front pages for days, and was so controversial at the time because he was still married to Princess Diana and she was married to Andrew Parker Bowles. The transcript reads like something out of a used bookstore romance novel. The incident ultimately broke Camilla's 20-year marriage and publicly humiliated her husband and children, and played a major role in Charles and Diana's divorce, which would come only a few years later and was requested by the Queen herself. So it's likely that the new king will never be able to fully live down the scandal. Number 7. Questionable parenting. Charles has always had a bit of a rocky relationship when it comes to being a father to his 2 sons William and Harry. In fact, after an heir to the throne had been secured, Diana said that Charles had been hoping their second child would be a girl, and obviously it wasn't. In her biography, Diana said she knew Harry was a boy, but kept it a secret until after he was born, as Charles actually had a negative reaction, saying, "Oh god, it's a boy," and commented on his red hair. But this is nothing compared to the hospital incident. In 1991, 8-year-old Prince William underwent emergency surgery for a skull fracture after being hit by a golf club to the head while playing with schoolmates. The young prince was kept overnight at London's Great Ormond Street Hospital following an hour-long operation. Diana spent the night sleeping in a bed set up near William's room so she could look after her son, whereas Charles took a much different approach. Rather than stay and comfort his wife and injured son after a 15-minute visit, the prince left the hospital to go to the opera. It's no surprise that when Buckingham Palace informed the press of the prince's decision to keep his previous plans but keep in touch with doctors, he was completely bashed by the tabloids. Number 6. Bad attitude. Many Brits think that Charles won't be a good king and fear that he just doesn't have what it takes to rise to the occasion. Whether it's because of his personality traits or capabilities or something else entirely, if people don't have confidence that he will do a good job, it will be hard for them to get behind him. In fact, when it comes to best-selling books about the real life of the royals, you'll see that Charles isn't exactly praised by biographers. In fact, some of his private rants and tantrums have been made public, further damaging his reputation. It was 2005 during a holiday in the Swiss Alps, just a few days before his wedding to Camilla, and the new king's general frustration boiled over and he made a rather awkward comment to Harry and William because he didn't seem to realize that there was a microphone nearby. He answered the reporter's question politely and then through gritted teeth muttered under his breath, "Bloody people, I can't bear that man. He's so awful, he really is." And yes, the microphones picked up every word. It was just plain awkward, but it goes to show you just how much Charles loves to complain. Number 5. Marriage to Diana. Charles's marriage to Diana didn't exactly get off to the best start, especially when we think back to their 1981 engagement interview. When he was asked if he loved Diana, he looked very nonchalant and just said, "Whatever love means," which caused a lot of people to scratch their heads. And years later, Diana actually admitted that the moment had traumatized her. When the couple wed in 1981 in front of a global television audience of more than 750 million people, they seemed to be perfect for each other. But behind the scenes, the marriage had extreme problems, and it became apparent that Charles was having an affair with Camilla. A heartbroken Diana exposed the affair in an infamous 1992 interview, saying, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." Charles publicly admitted to being unfaithful in his own interview, and the couple divorced in 1996. There was already public outrage growing against him, but it all came to a head when the princess was killed in a Paris car crash in 1997. From that point on, there were vitriolic outpourings in the press against both him and Camilla, and his popularity sank to an all-time low. So the British public, who is still very protective of Diana, still haven't been able to forgive Charles for how he treated her during their ill-fated marriage. Number 4. Too political. Blame the British press or Charles's self-created scandals over the years, but the more salacious or negative details of his life always seem to make the headlines. In 2015, the Black Spider memos caused quite a stir for him. The collection consisted of 27 memos that he sent in 2004 and 2005, lobbying British Prime Minister Tony Blair for the policy changes that he'd hoped for, including promoting alternative medicine and even asking to replace military helicopters. This was a pretty serious scandal because members of the royal family are supposed to stay out of politics and remain neutral, especially the ones who were always destined to be king. But Charles is often not shy about sharing his opinions on political matters, and this has led to him being criticized for it, possibly to the detriment of his future reign. And then in September of 2021, Charles had a brand new scandal to contend with. The chairman of the Prince Foundation, Michael Fawcett, was accused of bribing a Saudi billionaire with knighthood and UK citizenship if he was willing to donate to the foundation. So far, the investigation is still ongoing. Number 3. They prefer William. William, Kate, and their 3 children are adored all throughout England. In fact, a survey by BGM Research reveals that nearly half of the British public wants Prince Charles to step aside and give the throne to his oldest son. The couple have now been married for nearly a decade, and The Atlantic called their relationship a fairy tale, with their picture-perfect family and their lack of scandals. Plus, Prince William and Prince Harry are the most liked royals since records began, so it makes sense that people want to see them on the throne. But experts believe this would be nearly impossible. The bigger question now is how long King Charles will decide to reign now that he has taken the throne. Will he do the job for a couple of years before abdicating and handing the crown to his eldest son? Throughout their lives, the younger generation of the royal family has tried to find a balance between the fast-changing society that they have now and the rigid institution that is the monarchy. This tension has practically torn the brothers apart. While William leads a life of traditional duty, charity work, and military pageantry, Harry resides outside LA with his American ex-actress wife Meghan, who seems to be more interested in Hollywood than Buckingham Palace. The brothers, who were once very close, are now barely on speaking terms. Number 2. Taj Mahal photo. One of the most iconic photos ever taken of Diana was shot during a visit to India with Charles in February of 1992. The couple were expected to visit the Taj Mahal together, but Diana went on her own, which led to the headline-making photo that was a nail in the coffin for the new king's public image. It became the defining and memorable image of the tour. But why? Well, Charles practically abandoned his wife to visit some random architecture school, while Diana sat alone on a bench in front of the most famous monument of love. At the time, she told reporters her visit there was a very healing experience, but she did say, "It would have been better if both of us had been here, but my husband has to be in Delhi." The image was so powerful because it became the embodiment of Diana's loneliness and isolation, and really solidified Charles's image as a villain, opening him up to harsh criticism for not accompanying her. Years later, in 2016, William and Kate visited the exact same place and recreated the photos sitting side by side. In fact, the memory of his mother must have been very overwhelming there, because William actually started crying and was clearly overcome with the emotion of her memory. And coming in at number 1, too outspoken. Charles has been outspoken on a whole range of sensitive issues, from genetically modified crops to homeopathic medicines and architecture. Interestingly enough, he has always been a strong climate change activist and has been speaking out about it since 1968. Charles was a prominent backer of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord and discussed the subject with Donald Trump over tea in December of 2019. This has made him a lot more of a divisive figure than his mother, who barely cracked an expression during her 70-year reign, let alone expressed a single opinion. But Elizabeth's legendary ability not to offend was more strategic than many people realize. Charles has also said some outrageous things throughout his lifetime, like, "I'm not really good at being a performing monkey. I'm not prepared to just perform whenever they want me to perform on that sort of score. And that's called a microphone. It's a big sausage that picks up every time you say." But he also angered quite a few people when he infamously said, "Do you seriously expect me to be the first Prince of Wales in history not to have a mistress?" And let's not forget that notorious interview where he insisted that he was faithful to Princess Diana up until he felt the marriage was broken.